to stay.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Boards, a podcast dedicated to the actions and interests of skaters beyond skateboarding. My guest today, Tobin Yelland, grew up in San Francisco where he started skating in his teenage years in the mid-80s. He picked up a camera around the same time and started shooting some of the local skaters and quickly got his photos published in Thrasher, Transworld, and Big Brother. In the mid-90s, Tobin got involved in video projects, filming a lot of Stereo Skateboard's first video Visual Sound, as well as Anti-Hero's cult classic Fucktards. Aside from his skateboarding photography and up until today, Tobin has been shooting advertising and fashion photos, movie posters, or stills on movie sets, among other exciting projects. So here's my conversation with Tobin. I hope you'll enjoy it. Interviews up until now, I've usually had this format of just, having a conversation with my guest about his or her career and a journey with skating. And at the end, I do a kind of segment with surprise questions from friends of theirs.
Yes.
But for people like you, and I just recently did an episode with Scott Johnston a few weeks ago, and yes. I gathered a lot of friends' questions for him, over 20, and I was like, wow, this is going to take a long time to go through all of them and have all the rest of the interview. It will make a really long conversation. So I decided to just do the friends' questions and kind of use them as the bulk of the interview, and just the interview itself is the friends' questions,
Wow.
And so I'm going to try to do the same with you, because I got quite a few friends' questions for you as well. I have I think around 20 or maybe a little bit less.
Okay. I'm open for anything, yeah.
Cool. But yes, so the idea is to kind of go through them and all the people that ask questions are from different, time periods in your life and career. And that will allow you to share some stories on different events or projects that you've worked on throughout the years. To get us started, and just as an introduction, I guess, I'd like to just, present you in a few words for the listeners who might not be too aware of your work. I mean, probably most people who will tune in for this will be aware of who you are and what you've done in the last 20 to 30 years. But just for the people who might not know, I'd just like to attempt presenting you in a few words. And please correct me if I say anything wrong. So I understand you grew up in the 70s and 80s between SF and Mendocino County, and you started skating around 13 years old, and I think that's also the age at which you started shooting photos. So that must have been around 1984, and you started shooting people from SF that became iconic skaters like Mickey Reyes, Tommy Guerrero, Bryce Kanice, Jake Phelps, and more. Around that time, you took a photography class with your friend and I think roommate, maybe at some point, Luke Ogden. One of your teachers was actually Larry Clark, who became the famous director everybody knows. And so he was one of your teachers during that time, and I guess he must have become kind of a mentor for you. And I think you actually worked with him later down the road, on different movies, I think on Bully and Another Day in Paradise. You also started shooting for different skate magazines like Thrasher, Transworld, Big Brother. Of course, all of them were not necessarily at the same times because they were all quite competitive and a bit territorial, so it wasn't necessarily easy to work for several publications. And you also shot a lot of photos for skateboard brands. So in the mid-90s, you actually went to Europe to cover some skateboarding competitions that were happening back then. And I think that's when you connected with Chris Pastras and Jason Lee, who were on a trip over there. Connecting with them, you got involved in making their first video for Stereo Skateboards, A Visual Sound, which came out in 94. And shortly after that, you connected with Julian Stranger back in SF, who was starting Anti-Hero. You helped him with the visuals for the brand, and you filmed a lot of the video Fucktards, which came out in 97. And since then, aside from skate photography, which you've kept doing throughout your life and career, you've shot photos for various things, whether it's on movie sets, movie posters, advertising, fashion for various brands and publications. And I guess that kind of covers very, very, very quickly your career. But is there anything else that you would like to add maybe to that very quick summary of your life and career?
No, of course there's so many whatever little details about, life and work and whatever, all that stuff. But that is a very good summary. So thank you, Quentin.
Of course. So, okay, so let's do these friends questions. So I have a first one here from Chris Pastras. It's a pretty basic, but I think interesting question. He said, where did you learn photography and who were your early influences? And so I just mentioned that you had done this photography class, but can you tell us about maybe getting into photography and how did you eventually start learning about it?
Well, I think so much of my interest in photography has to do with adults that were around when I was young, and that was the earliest memories of cameras is my mom having a camera and being excited about taking photos. And my father had Super 8 cameras. He shot Super 8. My parents split up when I was 3, and one of my mom's first boyfriends after that was a filmmaker. So he had still cameras all over, but I also have memories of going to movie theaters to see movies that he had made or friends of his had made. And that was fascinating to me because the movie cameras, they're 16 millimeter movie cameras. Mm-hmm. They have gears and the film comes from one part of the camera and goes through the camera and then gets wound up on a spool, and just very fascinating, fascinating. And, but my earliest photographs were borrowing my mom's camera and probably wasting all her film, but just on my cat and toy soldiers. I fully have photos of toy soldiers lined up and my cat cruising through the scene of soldiers. So I got to use a lot of her cameras.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my earliest memory of cameras. And then I really early on, I liked that film Blow Up. That was really inspiring, just looking at the life of photographers, what that looked like. So I like that film. David Bailey in Blow Up. So I liked his photographs. Mm-hmm. And I really like Edward Weston. I got these books called the Day Books of Edward Weston.
Okay.
And those had really cool just insight into him as a photographer. And so I looked up to him. And my friend Luke Ogden, we grew up shooting photos together and learning photography. So I think I learned a lot from him and his photographs. I don't know. Also, I had a membership to the Museum of Modern Art. Mm-hmm. And early on, I got to see a lot of great photo shows there. And I did get to see a really cool Larry Clark photo show there for I think it was his book Tulsa, and it was just laid out on a wall. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what that was about, but then I ended up taking a class from him later. So that was a cool little precursor.
Was he already making movies at that time? I'm not sure when he started making movies.
No, I think somewhere in his book Tulsa, he wanted to make a movie of what he was seeing. Mm-hmm. So he did shoot 16 millimeter film, but I don't think he kind of grasped how to make a movie all by himself, Okay. So no, his first film was going to be Kem Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he was an early influence, and also the first documentary photography workshop I did when I was still in high school, and I did this workshop. My grandfather paid for the tuition, and I got to meet William Klein, Larry Clark, and Pedro Meyer. Mm-hmm. That's the people I remember. And through that, I got to connect with Larry Clark, and it's such a great inspiration to just meet people that are photographers and they're doing something you want to do. And I didn't know it, but he was looking to make a movie. Mm-hmm. So he asked if he could come out and see what skateboarding was about or what was like in California. And so he came out and he stayed on my floor, me and Luke Ogden's floor. We were roommates. And I think I was 19 and kind of barely making it as a photographer, just just doing it as much as I could and having odd jobs and things like that.
Right.
So that he came out like a bunch of times, maybe 5 times, and just cruised around with me. And then through those experiences that he gathered there, he met up with Ed Lockman, who's a really good cinematographer.
Okay.
And they co-directed a movie, and I think Harmony wrote it, called Kem Park. And that was going to be their first one, but then they got in an argument and they decided that they didn't like each other anymore.
Okay.
And they canned it, but then later on they finished it and made it.
Right, yeah. So then Kids was before Ken Park, right? That was like mid-90s, I think, Kids?
It was made before, yes.
So you were kind of the introduction to skateboarding for Larry Clark then?
I mean, I don't know. He probably saw skateboarding before that, I'm sure. Like,
sure.
He, living in New York and stuff. But yeah, so really, like, I took him to Visalia, California. I was doing a pro spotlight of Wade Spire. And so me and Larry drove over to pick up Wade Spire in Danville and then drove down to Karma Toshev's house in Visalia. And the characters that he kind of connected with was like Karma's parents and the whole like kind of like parents are still partying. they're living this like rock and roll lifestyle kind of like, and how the families are kind of broken up and kids are into different things. And Karma's sister's name is Peaches. So in Ken Park, the main female character is named Peaches.
Oh, okay.
Some of the stories, like the intro to Ken Park is a story that Alan Peterson told Larry about a classmate of his in high school who brought a gun to school. And I don't know if he was a skateboarder, but he brought a gun to school and he committed suicide at school. And that became the intro to Ken Park.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, like eventually you worked with him on a few movie sets. I think on the movie Bully and stuff. You were shooting stills on those movie sets, right?
Yes. Yeah, that Another Day in Paradise was the first one. It was his second movie that was shot in LA. And so that was really fun because, my only experience in photography is skateboarding, which is awesome. I love it. But it was really nice to try something different. And I was in so far over my head because I'd never met another still photographer that worked on a film. I didn't know anything about it at all.
Yeah.
So I just looked probably like a kook to most of the actors and the crew for a while. But then I figured things out as I went along.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool experience. Shot all film. The first 4 films I shot stills on was all film, so it's all slide film, which is also just fun and different. I don't know. It's just fun to think about. It's so different today.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was a great opportunity. I loved it. I met a lot of interesting people. Got to see filmmaking. Eric Edwards started to shoot Another Day in Paradise, and then he got fired halfway through, and they hired someone else. But I really like his cinematography a lot. He's worked a lot with Gus Van Sant and different people. I love his work. I got to meet Melanie Griffith, and the first time the producer introduced me to her, and she didn't like photographers at all. So this is another thing that I just is my first kind of intro into what people think about photographers. And she said, she's smoking a cigarette. She just said, "Just stay out of my fucking face." And I thought it was so funny. Funny.
so welcoming.
Well, I think it's just funny. Yeah. Photographers sometimes have a bad rap, especially on film sets. So I don't know.
Okay, so this next one is from Thomas Campbell. So he said, "Tell us a story of a time with Mickey Reyes that was either fun or scary, or just shows the dimensions of Mickey's expansive character, and maybe how Mickey impacted your life."
Stories about Mickey Reyes. So for all that you don't know Mickey Reyes, you could go watch Sick Boys, that skate film from the 80s, so you could see his skating. He's really amazing skateboarder. I don't know. I mean, we met, first time I really got to know him, we went on a cross-country trip, or we went to a contest in Arizona. Me, Julian, Mickey, and Mike Archimedes. And then we picked up Luke Ogden when we were there and brought him back. But we went out to Arizona, and it was his first pro contest, and I think maybe Julian Stranger's first or second pro contest. Okay. And he's just way more grown up than anyone I knew. I mean, he's a couple of years older than me, but just in years, I think his father was a police officer. And I don't know, he's just more, he knew more about life.
Yeah, more mature.
More mature, I guess. Later on, we became roommates, and maybe I'll get some funny stories here, but we moved into a warehouse, or he knew some lady in a warehouse, or a friend of his that a bunch of people were moving out of. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to move in, which is a really funny decision on his part because he was just became a police officer.
Oh, yeah.
And then he invited me and Julian and Luke to share a big warehouse with him. I guess one story, we had this big warehouse and we had beams, like big wood beams in the warehouse. And we'd all be sitting around the table, like having a beer or something in the kitchen. And he would shoot his gun into the beam without telling anyone.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a big surprise. So that was a funny, like, I don't know, Mickey moment.
Wow, that's pretty gnarly.
What else? I got to do ride-alongs with him when he was on his police.
Oh, yeah, as a police officer? Okay.
Yeah. And so one of the most fun moments or kind of like interesting moments was he was trying to catch some people that were stealing cigarettes from a drugstore. And they kept breaking the window and stealing cigarettes, over and over and over again. Uh-huh. And no one could catch these people. So he just drove by the place while we were in the car together. And he noticed they were about to steal the cigarettes again. So he did his whole call in the sergeant or whatever, and and they chased him and they found them. So that was kind of exciting.
How long did you two live together? Was that pretty short, or was that for a few years? Or
no, I think we started living together right when I was really kind of just doing skate photography. I think I was like we probably lived together for 5 years. We were at a bunch of roommates in a warehouse. And it's just when I was photographing every day and kind of doing, because before I became a photographer, I did jobs being like an electrician assistant.
Oh, yeah.
I also was a delivery driver for a company that delivered vegetables and fruit to restaurants in San Francisco.
Right.
So right when I was just like photographing every day, we lived together. And then we lived together at another place for 3 years, which was really fun.
Okay.
I don't know, just fun. He was like just a weird character. Like it's just weird that he would get a job as a police officer, but I guess that's his family business. So that's what he did. And they still make weird movies. Like we'd be making some weird movies on a video camera. Like Dave Carney was our roommate for a little while. I remember Dave and his friend Kevin wrote a film and Mickey acted in it and they all acted in it together and switched the video camera around. They all did in-camera edits. Mm-hmm. And it's just funny watching him. I think that's one of my favorite stories because he has like makeup on, like face makeup, and he's playing this weird piano. And then, and then the next day he'll go to work as a police officer. It's just really funny.
Actually, my next question is from Mickey Reyes. So he asked, Tobin, how much do you love printing your own images? We had a rad darkroom together in SF, and we printed together for many years. It was a blast.
Yeah, printing was so fun. When we lived in the warehouse together, we had a darkroom. It had no running water, but it was really still a great darkroom. And we printed there a bit, but then when we moved to the next house, we put in plumbing and a nice sink. And that darkroom ran for like 5 years. And a lot of people came through there. And yeah, Mickey and I had nice times like staying up late and printing photos. It's just really fun. It's just really fun because it's like editing a video, or it's where everything comes to an end from whatever images that you've taken. So it's just really fun, and I don't know, music, the red light.
Yeah.
And this is black and white printing, by the way. So
okay.
You have ventilation, just keeping the airflow going, and then music, and you have all these developed rolls of film that you're looking at, and you're squinting through, like mostly 35 millimeters. So it's very small, images, and you're looking through which images you might want to make into a print, and then putting that into, for all that you don't know, it's kind of like you're projecting, you put it into a machine called an enlarger, and you're projecting this little piece of celluloid that has an image burned into it. You're projecting light through that down onto a big piece of paper, a big photosensitive piece of paper, and then passing it through developer, stop, and fix chemicals, and then that's your print. And you wash it and dry it, and then that's it. So that is such a magical process. So now it's mostly, my darkroom is Photoshop.
Yeah.
And I still enjoy printing, but it's different. It's still amazing. I love the process of tweaking or changing the image to the way I want it to look. But I like both ways.
Okay, I have a next one here from Antonius Dentcho.
Yeah, Antonius.
I think you worked with him on a book project not very long ago, like called Mental.
Yeah, it was an art show. It was a photography show.
Okay, right. So he asked, did it help sharing a darkroom with your homie Luke in the Harrison Street house? Or were you battling for the time slots in there? Like, did your photography get better at that time because you both were upcoming photographers?
Okay, so growing up in San Francisco, Luke and I met a lot of my friends at the boys club ramp in the Haight-Ashbury.
Right.
That's where I met Mickey, Julian, maybe Luke too, because I started going there when I was in middle school. I ended up going to high school, George Washington High School, with Luke and Julian and Mark Archimedes and people. But so Luke and I took our first class in photography together. It was like a summer program class right before high school. And that was awesome. And so we started out together, and not immediately, but soon after, he got his dad to help him build a darkroom in his house, which was really cool. It's this really tiny little room with two doors. It's funny. A lot of the space was taken up by two doors. But so he started photographing and doing really good with photography. Soon after, my stepfather and mom helped me build a darkroom in our attic. We had this attic, so it was really funny shaped. Like the roofs in San Francisco are pointy, you know. So it was this corner of an attic, and you couldn't stand up in it. You had to sit in a chair. So we got a chair with wheels. But Luke would come over and we'd print at my house and I'd print at his house. So I'd say that we pushed each other a lot in photography. We made a lot of mistakes together, a lot of underexposed photos, and then a lot of like learning of what worked and what didn't work. So he definitely pushed me a lot to get better at photography. So, but no, we didn't have to fight for times in the darkroom at our warehouse or whatever. But there was a time when we were roommates that we only had one phone. So if someone would call to get one of us to take photos, it was a little competitive. I don't know. Sometimes Luke would be left out. Sometimes I would be left out. Sometimes we'd both be at a session, and like as a photographer, you kind of want to be the only photographer at the session because, you want to come up with some photos. But I would say we pushed each other a lot. And I think that's a big reason how I got better faster, for sure.
Yeah. Progressed.
Yeah. And plus we had a lot of older photographers to look up to around us. Like Craig Stesick would be in and out of Thrasher and High Speed, and Mofo would be there, making photographs and doing his thing, and also Bryce Knights and Kevin Thatcher as well. So we had lots of like older people to look up to and see their photographs, and they're all really inspiring.
All right, this next one is from Aaron Meza. So he said, during the height of the concrete jungle days, who was the better skater, Arco or Mickey, and why?
Arco and Mickey, and why? I don't know if I ever would think of who's better. Height of concrete jungle days.
So Concrete Jungle was a skate shop, right?
Yeah, it's a skate shop. It was our skate shop. It was the kind of punk rock skate shop. It was awesome. Ron Posner from MDC owned the skate shop. MDC is a band and is short for Millions of Dead Cops. And so he would practice he had all his band equipment, and he would take us to contests in his van. It was pretty cool. But I don't know who's the better. I think Phil Chin was the best. They're all so good. Mike Archimedes was like the first best skateboarder that I knew as a young teenager, like as I was just starting to skate. He could do anything. He would skate all over the place. He could ollie up curbs and ollie into 50-50 grind on all kinds of stuff. So he was in our little group of kids, like middle school kids. He was a few years older, and he was miles ahead of anyone.
Okay.
Mickey was also really amazing, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Jeff Whitehead was on Concrete Jungle. He was really talented. I hung out with Phil Chin a lot. He was on Concrete Jungle. He was amazing. And in contrast, Phil would wear like all white and he'd have his hair perfect and everything. And, and then we'd be in Ron Posner's van going to a demo or something. And it was just more of an environment of like 12 packs of like really cheap beer and cigarettes and joints and Phil Chin. It was pretty awesome. I liked Phil Chin a lot. They're all really talented. And then later Mike Carroll got on Concrete Jungle.
Okay, this next one is from Fabian Alomar. I'm not sure how to say his last name. Alomar?
Alomar.
Alomar. So he said, what is the best trick that you ever shot going over the Gons Gap at EMB, and who was it?
I'd say my biggest memory is going to, or having John Cardiel call me he wanted to do a backside 180 ollie over it. And it sounds really easy now, but no one had ever done anything except for an ollie over it.
Right.
I think at the time he was 16. And so it was kind of a big moment, for him, because he wanted to get there at like 9 a.m. and do it when no one was there, because he didn't want a big audience. And, I could take photos, but I wasn't probably the best photographer yet. Or I hadn't fully come into my powers as a skate photographer or whatever. But being there, and that's my best memory. Being there, getting there early in the morning. I think Henry Sanchez was there already, and John. And and he did it. He bailed it maybe twice and then made it probably the third try. Oh, wow. And that was pretty exciting. I also got to watch Mark Gonzalez try a double flip. That was really cool.
Damn. He kickflipped it, didn't he? Yeah, I think...
yeah, he kickflipped it. Yeah.
In Video Days, maybe? Or I'm not sure.
Maybe. I don't think so.
Maybe not Video Days, yeah. But, and I was reading earlier this interview you did with Neil McDonald for the Slam City Skates website a few years ago. And there was a photo that you shot of John Cardiel ollieing from... It's like the Gons Gap, but it's not the actual Gons Gap. It's like right around it. I don't know if you know what photo I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's well, the Gons is the same. It's called the Wave, I think, but it's the same kind of wall. It's this high wall that you go towards the fountain. The Gons, you go towards the fountain, and then you ollie off the edge of it down to, I think it's called the three stairs. It's like a stage kind of thing. Right. Not the stage, but whatever. You're ollieing down. Mm-hmm. But the way that John went was he went the opposite direction, which there's some kind of like space in the wall. Mm-hmm. That the wall starts, it connects to the Gons, but then there's a space, and then it continues on in another direction. So it's at the same height.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So he's ollieing from that skinny, like, top of the wall to another skinny top of the wall.
But it was pretty big, right? The gap between the two.
I think it was pretty big. It felt pretty big. I mean, I shot it with a fisheye lens, so it looks probably bigger than it really is, but it was big.
Okay, this next one is from Sean Sheffey. So he said, ask him if he remembers when me and Julian Stranger cruised by the house before skating back in the day.
Yeah, I remember Sean Sheffey. I remember him living in San Francisco, and we'd go skating, and he's so amazing. But first I remember Sean Sheffey, like, in the late 80s going, I think me, Mickey, and Julian drove down to San Diego for a trade show. Mm-hmm. And Sean and probably Felix Arguelles and Barker Barrett and probably other guys, they rode for Shut, and they were there at the trade show too. Mm-hmm. And I remember after the trade show, and we were hanging out, skating curbs and skating in front somewhere, and just being blown away by there's some big island, and he was doing some crazy, like, big backside 180 over the island. I remember just all of us just, like, being really amazed by his skating. Mm-hmm. And then he got to live in San Francisco later, and yeah, we got to hook up and go skating all the time. It was pretty amazing. He's such a cool person.
Okay, I have a few questions so I don't know if you know Andrew Caulfield. His Instagram is like Ando, A-N-D-O.
Yeah, I know Ando.
Right, okay. So he asked a few things, so I'll just read you what he shared, and you can, like, maybe pick a few of the questions you want to answer. His first question is, what is your go-to setup? Camera, lens, film? Then he asked also, what are your favorite photos you've shot? Then he asked also, who outside of skateboarding influenced your photography? And his last question is, anyone you didn't shoot that you would have wanted to?
So I think my go-to setup for film, it always changes. It changes over the years and stuff. Sure. But I like, I could just say my all-time favorite setup is probably a Nikon FM2 with a 35mm lens. Okay. I love it because it's such a beater. I've dropped it. I've done so many things to it. And it's still, I mean, you got to fix it and stuff like that. But mostly it's pretty bulletproof. Mm-hmm. I really like that. I really like the Olympus XA. There's a lot of different types of those, but I really like the XA.
Okay.
And those, I do like, I don't know, I'm probably just blabbing on, whatever. But I like small cameras. I like small 35 millimeter cameras. I also like twin lens 120 cameras. Mm-hmm. I love Agfa 50 speed film and different color and black and white. I love Tri-X. And right now I haven't been shooting a lot of film. So I like shooting digital. And I don't know if that is part of the question, but I really like the Nikon Z8.
Okay.
It's really cool. And I've just kind of switched over and gotten this. I have a couple of zoom lenses, but I'd like to get some primes. I'd like to get a 35 and a 50. But I really like that camera a lot. Okay, so then...
Like favorite photos you've shot? Is there something that comes to mind? I mean, that's obviously a bit difficult.
I love portraits. I love my favorite photos. I mean, I love skate photos too, especially people that I love and that are friends mostly.
Sure.
That's kind of my favorite memories from shooting skating. And I don't know, I'm looking at a photo of Joey Sorrell right now that I took. It's probably the first time I met him. He came up to San Francisco with Fabian and Mark Gonzalez, and I was living in a warehouse for a couple months, and they came and stayed a couple nights, and looking at a photo where it's just a portrait of him, and he has this cool ATM click board that Mark did the graphics for, and it looks really cool. I don't know. I love people, and portraits of people probably the most.
And he asked also, who outside of skating influenced your photography?
So many people. There's so many great photographers. One of my favorite photographers is Joseph Kudelka. And Joseph Kudelka is from the Czechoslovakia. He's been around forever. He photographed the Russian occupation of Czechoslovakia. I think that was the first big thing that he did, but he also photographed gypsies. He made a book called Gypsies.
Okay.
And other things. I really love his photographs. Edward Weston is a big influence.
Yep, you mentioned him earlier, yeah.
Yeah, so many. There's so many to name. I don't know.
And and anyone you didn't shoot that you would have wanted to shoot? Is there someone that comes to mind?
I don't know. I think, as far as skateboarding goes, every skateboarder that I photographed, there's probably a lot of things that they did that I wished I was there to shoot. I think photography in and of itself is I'm just photographing all the time. And most of the time I don't come back with something that is amazing. Most of the time, or it might be one image in one day out of hundreds or thousands of images. So I think really it's that I'm just happy to have had time with so many amazing people, in skateboard world, and have made some photographs that I really like. And there's always going to be so many images that got away, or it just didn't work out. There was something that happened that made it so today was not the day. But I think that's just part of it.
Then I have a few from Anthony Claravall. So he said, you shot a lot of early Thunder and FTC ads in Thrasher. A lot of sequences. One in particular that's burned into my brain was of Karma at EMB. As a kid, those sequences were more progressive than a lot of the tricks in the mag. Was your photography more about trick innovation at that point?
Oh, thanks, Anthony. That sequence in particular, I think, was at a time where I think Mike York maybe was the first one to kind of do this nose slide to like crooked grind. Oh, yeah. And then all of a sudden, everyone had to do that. Everyone had to figure out their own variation of like tail slide to fakey crooks or, Right. And I just, as a photographer, I think you get really keyed into what someone is going to publish, and I think you as a team, like as far as a skateboarder and a photographer meeting up to go shoot some photos. And this was at a time where not everyone had a video camera. So it was mostly, maybe Aaron Meza, Jacob Rosenberg would be around San Francisco making videos, but it seemed like photography was still maybe equally as important. Whatever. So whatever kind of tech trick someone was doing, you wanted to get a shot of it. It became really difficult with sequences because it was expensive. It was just one shot. You had maybe on one roll of film, I had maybe 3 opportunities to get a sequence, three goes, 3 bails, or maybe there's going to be a make. So it would be just trying to have a lot of film to be able to shoot tech tricks like that, like Karma's trick for his Thunder ad.
Okay, his next question is, the Rick Ibaseta nose blunt transfer at Black Rock is a sequence that I don't recall seeing footage of. Did you shoot a lot of tricks that weren't filmed? How often was it just the skater and you?
I feel like it was mostly just the skater and me for my for skateboarding photos. But yeah, so much of the time. And I guess that's like the best you could do with a still camera to really communicate a whole trick is to shoot a sequence.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the closest that I could get as a still photographer to having a video camera. Mm-hmm. And I think that probably made me want to shoot video. And so, I don't know. Some things are, better for video, but...
His next question is actually linked to that. He said, at what point did you become a filmer, and how thought out or planned out was the filming for Fucktards?
So I think just, I didn't buy a video camera until probably like in the middle of when I was shooting the anterior video. But, we did the visual sound first.
Yep, right.
And that was really like my school on how to shoot video. I think what made it really how Chris and Jason kind of made it easier for me right in the beginning. And it was really fun actually, is they had a big cruiser board. And they had big, really like 169 Indies on it with rollerblade wheels and a lot of riser pads, like extra big bolts, lots of riser pads. And I was trying this out, and after I got the hang of it, it made filming really, really smooth and really, really kind of fun.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And they had their own camera, and we just shot a lot. I think we shot for like 9 months or something
for a visual sound.
Yeah. I think it was over the course of 9 months. I was in LA a lot for some parts of it, maybe the beginning parts of it. And then we were in San Francisco a lot towards the end. And that was, I don't know, I just learned a lot over that. But Fucktards was a lot of people's film. Like Julian and John and them would have their own, they would just bring a video camera with them and then film each other. So it's not like I filmed the whole thing, but what I brought to it was I brought my Super 8 camera. And we shot a lot of that. We shot some Pixel Vision. Do you know what Pixel Vision is?
I'm not sure, no.
No, it's the most interesting camera. Is for kids. And it was a camera that you buy in a toy store. And you record onto an audio tape. And it creates a black and white image.
Wow.
It is pretty interesting. So there's a piece of that in the middle of Fucktards that I shot.
Really? Okay.
But yeah, I love shooting video. Yeah, I love it.
Also, just this question was kind of how planned out was the filming for Fucktards? Did you have kind of a schedule, or was it more like improvised, or?
Well, I was hired on for Antihero I basically lasted a year. I was hired on from the beginning to do photos and video. And yeah, we just go out and shoot video if that was if something we were doing called for that. I don't remember there being a plan. I don't think it was that long of a shoot, but I know there's one trip that was going to Burnside. A lot of the deluxe skaters went on the trip, and that was really fun. Chris Pastras was there too. Ben Liversedge was there. Tommy Guerrero drove the van. That was fun. I don't think there was much other kind of like planned, trips and stuff like that, but it was just mostly skating around San Francisco.
Okay, let's do maybe a last one from him. So he asked also, most photographers in 2023 no longer shoot sequences because there's always someone filming video at the same time. Are sequences a lost art? Is there something a photo sequence can convey over the video?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, a photo sequence it's just like a camera. I mean, nowadays cameras will do video or photos. But yeah, it's different. I like both. It's just choppier, right? That's all it is. It's like, so maybe nowadays a still camera will give you 15 frames, whereas a video camera will be like 500 frames.
Yeah.
But good luck shooting a line with a sequence, still camera.
And so he finished, that's not a question, but he said, please tell Tobin he's my favorite photographer, a huge, huge inspiration from then to today. If I wasn't constantly traveling, living out of a suitcase, I would have a home filled with his prints.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Okay. So next one is from Tim Dowling. So he asked, hey Tobin, I've been a huge fan of your work for forever, and now it's a great honor and a privilege to call you a work colleague and a friend. I'm wondering, have you ever been on a skate session and the cops showed up and you got your camera and or film confiscated? If so, where were you shooting and with whom? And were you able to get your gear back?
I I don't remember I don't think that ever happened to me. The closest thing that happened to me like that was when Embarcadero was, at one point Embarcadero became off limits. The police just didn't want you there, and they would give you tickets, or some people got arrested. Mm-hmm. I remember shooting at Hubba Hideout and having a 16 millimeter camera. It was kind of big, like a Bolex, and my regular bag and my camera gear and stuff like that, which is always... I always move much slower than everyone else when the cops are coming. So I remember the cops coming and everyone's scattered, and I'm left I had to walk in the direction of the cops to be able to get my camera bag and my board. Mm. And I don't remember, they might have taken my board. I definitely have gotten boards taken away before. And I know they gave me a ticket for skateboarding. Okay. And it was, I guess, the worst thing that they could do to me, or whatever, the most bothersome thing. So they gave me a ticket for skateboarding, which meant that I then needed to go to a court date downtown and pay a fine. I think I pled not guilty, and I think they didn't charge me any money. It was just the hassle of going there. Yeah. Okay, I see. So luckily, I never got my camera taken away. So, but yeah, thank you, Tim. Tim and I are both in the camera union. We're in the cinematography union. Oh, and cool. Yeah, and the strike is almost over. So I think we'll be getting back to work hopefully soon. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I heard about that over the news here, yeah. He actually asked another question. My other question is for all the dads out there. I have 2 kids and I'm constantly trying to balance the home life/work situation. How does having a family impact the jobs you decide to take? And if the gig involves travel, how do you deal with that? I think I would pretty much take any job. Usually jobs don't last that long. Maybe it's a couple weeks or a month. I definitely have had regrets of taking jobs that went out of my city or out of the country. Mm-hmm. I know it does take a toll on family life, and especially when your kids are young. How old are your kids now? Like, I think you have a teenager and a younger child, right? Yeah. My son is 16 and my daughter's 11. So I think luckily I've been able to be around home, around Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And that's been pretty lucky for me, so... Okay. The next one is from Rick Ibaseta. So he asked, what happened when we missed the last train out of Amsterdam? Oh, so Rick, when we missed the last train out of Amsterdam, we had to stay up all night. I don't think we had money for a hotel, but we couldn't go back to where our hotel was. What year is that? Do you remember? More or less? Yeah, I think early 90s. And so I think we started the evening kind of just walking. I think we walked so much all over the place. And I think we found a place to lie down. We slept on a barge. Like, oh, wow. It was just flat. It was just this like barge that was like docked to the side of, the canal or something. Until rats were cruising around, and then we didn't like that, so we left. I think it was me, Rick, and Julian. And then we sat at just outside of I think we just were waiting for things to open up so we could get some coffee or something like that. But it was miserable. That was miserable. Yeah. Yeah. Was that during the winter or I don't know. It was during one of the European tours where it was you would skate in Northampton, skate in Munster, Germany, and different places. Yeah, those must have happened over the summers, I guess, yeah. Yeah, probably. Okay. Yeah, wow. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. So I have just 2 audio questions. I'll have you listen to this first one.
Bonjour Tobin. I guess you were part of the people using the Nikon FM2. Could you tell us about it, please?
Okay.
Did you recognize the voice?
I'm not sure.
That was Fred Mortagne, French Fred.
Ah, Fred. Fred's amazing.
Yes.
Hi, Fred. So, yeah, I like the Nikon FM2 was...
you mentioned it earlier, didn't you? When you said your favorite gear, kind of? Was it a Nikon FM2 that you said?
Yeah, I think that's one of my all-time favorite cameras. I don't have one at the moment, but I've had many throughout the years, and I think they were really nice because they had a high flash sync. They had 2/50th of a second flash sync for the nice color fill flash photos, and I don't think it didn't have any automatic settings. So it was quite simple. If the battery died, you could still shoot photos, and that was nice because batteries die, and sometimes you don't have batteries. So,
right, yeah.
So it was really nice and small. and really tough. It was like this like tank. And I think Nikon still tries to emulate that shape today in their digital photographs, or cameras.
Cameras, yeah.
And it's just nice. I really like having it around, just walking around with my friends, shooting either skate photos or portraits, and just capturing kind of like what's happening with in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so precious. You know, you could buy a new one pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to have. I love that camera.
All right, this next one is from Eric Swisher from the Chrome Ball incident. So he asked, you played a large part in both A Visual Sound and Fucktards, which are now looked upon as classics, but were largely slept on at the time of their release. Why do you think that was the case during the mid-90s, and what is it about these videos that seems to resonate so much more decades later? Thanks for everything.
I think, thanks for the question, and I think anything that resonates, I think, is honest. It's just truthful and unique. I think that's probably what makes those two videos stand out or different, because they're very different. They are kind of personal takes. I think for like the anti-hero video, I think the lo-fi-ness of it, like just how parts were thrown together with, like, for example, there's a street musician, Carlos Guitarlos. Mm-hmm. And I think Julian filmed him playing a song, and then just took the intro of him playing the song and then cut together Sean Young skating throughout it. You know, it's very simple and very like
spontaneous.
In comparison, the normal way to do a video part would be shooting a lot of good video, but then also picking a song that's intense or inspirational, or kind of like heightens the experience of seeing that video part. It might be like amazing song. You always remember those songs for video parts that you like, you know, and it creates like a cinematic thing. Whereas what seems like what Julian was doing with that was kind of bringing it to, I don't know, a less precious kind of.
Yes. Much
like
more simple.
Example.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, A Visual Sound, like, I think Jason and Chris were just like figuring out how they wanted to tell their story. I think a lot of how good that movie is or that film is that they thought out every little piece. Mm-hmm. And it was just really special how they had the phonograph player, and how they had the shot at the end of, I think, Jason's friend with this old record player, and they were kind of like, now it's over, now we're bringing the needle up, you know. Mm-hmm. And just those moments that they put together were really unique, and I don't know.
Or even like the intro of, I was watching it the other day, the intro of Ethan Fowler's part. Like, I think you guys shot that at the very end, right? Kind of spontaneously, like him laying down on the street and stuff.
Yeah, well, maybe that's another reason too. Like the intros that were all shot in Super 8, and Jason is obsessed with film and shooting all film now. But even then, he was shooting Super 8, and all the intros were stills, either my stills or Gabe Morford or Ari Makopoulos. They brought Ari in and used just a lot of great imagery.
All right, this next one. So that's not really a question, but I reached out to Ed Templeton. He said, Tobin must have a lot of stories about shooting celebrities, and Cardiel and Stranger, and Andy Roy back in the day, and shooting on film sets. So we've mentioned like Cardiel, Julian. We haven't mentioned yet like your work around shooting on movie sets. But I was wondering, like talking about Andy Roy, do you have maybe a memory or like a story that you could share about filming him or shooting photos with him? Like you shot this iconic photo of him with the gun that's very famous. But do you have something that comes to mind?
You know, probably the things I remember the most are just being on trips with people. And one of those trips was us, like me, Julian, Andy, trying to figure out how we were going to get to the East Coast for a couple contests in 1983. Actually, 1983 for a long time. It was exactly 30 years ago.
30 years, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? So I had a car, but it wasn't, in great condition. I think I needed new tires. Mm-hmm. So it happened that Andy's father was either a mechanic or had access to like good discounts on tires. So I remember going down to telling Julian and Andy, like, I don't think I'm going to be able to go because my car's all not in great condition. So he got me a discount on some tires. So we had new tires, and then it was me, Julian, and John. And then we invited Andy to come. So we drove from San Francisco to New York and, I don't know, stayed out there for like 4 days. We also went to a contest in Connecticut and went to the Brooklyn Banks contest. And I remember on the way back, a couple of funny stories. I think John was talking about the Marine Corps, and I think his dad was in the Marine Corps, and his stepdad was in the Marine Corps, and he was talking about like it was really cool. And Andy just liked to fuck with anyone that he could, anyone. So he was like, fuck the Marines, fuck the Marines. And me and Andy were sitting in the back seat, and then we were driving, and I think Julian was driving, and then John jumps over and starts fighting Andy, and they're fighting back and forth. Another thing, we got some really cool mixtapes from Alyosha. Gave us some really cool mixtapes, and we're listening to some. I think I was driving in the middle of the night in Colorado, and I had the video camera because I was so bored. The video camera, and it was snowing. And Julian and Andy had shaved their eyebrows somewhere in the middle of this trip, which made us really interesting characters, like walking into like a McDonald's or something. We were driving and listening to hip hop, and I had the idea I was going to wake them up and videotape them. So I have video footage of them waking up in the back seat and listening to like Diamond D, and some nice video footage of them with like no eyebrows. So that's a good memory I have of them.
I'd love to see that. That must be really cool. All right, so this next one is from Jamie Owens. So he asked, hey Tobin, what are some of your all-time favorite skate photos shot by other photographers? Do you have some that come to mind? I
do. Okay, do you know the photo? I don't know if you guys know this photo, but Mofo took it, and it's this guy he's doing a frontside grind in a pool, or like a wheeler, grabbing his nose, and he has an empty beer bottle. He's looking up into the sky while he's grinding a pool. With one hand, he's holding a beer bottle and looking up into the sky. The other hand, he's grabbing his nose and doing like a frontside grind in a shallow end of a pool.
Okay.
So that's one of my favorite photos. Luke Ogden has so many of my favorite photos. Great photos of Nadas at Venice High, and so many other ones. Mike Blayback has so many great photos. Grant Brittain. There's too many. I love Grant's Chris Miller frontside air with his pole, taking a photo. Yeah. He has his camera on a pole. Love that one. Yeah, and I love all Stesik's photos of just people hanging out, and like group photos, and those are really amazing.
Okay. He also asked, you shoot a lot of behind the scenes on movie sets. What's been one of the most memorable ones, or maybe the wildest thing you witnessed on a movie set?
One of my most memorable movie set experiences, and I swear, like, a lot of movie sets are very, very similar. They all run kind of like a machine. It's all very, the day is really like regimented, written down and planned out. Mm-hmm. And I was so lucky to get to work on a Mike Mills film. It was called Come On, Come On. And,
with Joaquin Phoenix, right?
Yeah. Joaquin Phoenix. And it was such a trip. It's such a trip because in between scenes, there was like music playing, and he hired a musician a couple different days. And we were filming in a house, and there would be a musician playing, and they would stop the music between like when they're about to shoot. It was a French horn player and a cello player. Okay. And it was so weird. It's just so weird that was part of the day and part of the experience. And I really enjoyed that experience. It was just a very different
interesting.
Experience.
Kind of like a transition between takes or something, or?
My take on it was that it's just keeping the energy high and the vibe of the whole thing, because it just made it really fun for me, just like a crew member being on set. And I'm sure it influences like how people are just, the energy of the set. I don't know, but it was really cool. Yeah, otherwise, I really enjoy being on film sets. It's an environment that is always really interesting and busy. There's always something amazing. If there's, if it's a good story, and most of the films I've worked on are really good, it's just really cool watching that go down, watching those takes happen. And it's kind of like a little private theater. You're just getting to watch it with the cinematographer and director and sound person and crew.
Yeah.
And you get to be there. I love it.
Yeah. No, it must be rad. Yeah, and especially, you mentioned that movie, Come On, Come On, with Joaquin Phoenix. I know you also shot some photos on a film with Philip Seymour Hoffman back in the day, in the early 2000s. I didn't write down the name of the film, but yeah, that must have been interesting too. He was a fantastic actor as well.
That experience, the movie is called Love, Liza, And Philip Seymour Hoffman's brother wrote the screenplay for that movie, and we got to film. The reason why how I got that was it was the same producer that produced Bully it was done in the South. Bully was in Florida, and I think Georgia too. But yeah, and Love Liza was filmed in the South, and I was lucky to be able to get to work on that. And it was amazing watching Philip Seymour Hoffman work. Kathy Bates too; she was amazing. Yeah, I love actors. I love watching them.
Okay, I have a few questions from Joe Brook, fellow photographer. Let's see. He said, who are some of your favorite non-skate photographers? I guess you mentioned a couple of people, like you mentioned Edward Weston. Do you have anybody else that kind of comes to mind?
Yeah, let me just think about it real quick. Shit, I wish I had my library here. Well, I love all the people I know that I've been able to meet. Oh, I got to meet Robert Frank. Mm-hmm. I got to meet him and see him speak at the Art Institute, and he's one of my favorite photographers. He's a big inspiration. Danny Lyon is a big inspiration. I got to meet him, and I never thought I'd be able to meet him, but I ended up living in the same neighborhood as his son Noah, and met him when I was in Brooklyn. And then I guess Noah was in LA and visiting, and then his father, Danny, was, and his mother too, was around. So they came by and I got to meet them. So that was really awesome. Ari Makopoulos is the one. I think he's kind of like my uncle in a way. Because he's not old enough to be my father, but he's kind of like an uncle, and I just love his view on life. I also love Lee Ledaire's photographs. He's amazing. Who else? There's so many amazing photographers. I love Larry Sultan. Is amazing. I love his work. Yeah, there's so many. I could list more, but
yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, that's great. He also asked, what cameras did you film fucktars with, and do you still have them?
I still have the Pixelvision camera that I brought from another one of our skater friends, Mon. I still have it. I still have my Super 8 camera that I shot that film with that I brought. It's a Super 8 sound camera. So I still have that. That's really cool. You can plug a microphone into it, and Super 8 sound film, has a sound strip on the side of the film. So it just records the sound to that. So that's pretty awesome. I don't have the video cameras that I had for that, but yeah.
He also asked, what's your favorite cover you shot? And I think I don't know if you said it was your favorite, but I know that one that was impactful was the Jason Lee, the ollie, backside ollie on this thing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
For a slap maybe, or I'm not sure which magazine it was for.
Yeah, Jason Lee was a Transworld cover, and
Transworld.
Yeah, and that was a big deal for me. That was really amazing. I think the most important cover I've ever made was my first cover for Transworld, and it was of Keith Huffenagel. It was on the same trip that me, Julian, John, and Andy went out to New York, and I got to hang out and cruise around with Keith. Mm-hmm. And I stayed at his friend Alex's house that night, and we just went out all night shooting. And I mean, that was such a big deal for me because I had always dreamed of having a cover, and that was my first cover. And so I think that's one of my most memorable ones. I also really love the Jason Lee cover, obviously. It was really one of my favorites, but John Cardiel, Big Brother cover, going through the rafters.
Yeah, that one is great, yeah. And then he asked, that one is kind of random, but it's a funny one. Favorite food spot in San Francisco?
Favorite food spot is Cancun on Mission, right by 19th Street, for a burrito. And they also have really good ceviche tostadas, but get it with the avocado on top.
Okay, then I have one from Grant Brittain. So he said, ask him about when we stormed the U.S. Capitol building legally. We both wore similar jackets and had Leicas.
Yes, yeah, that was so fun. That was amazing. Grant's friend works in Washington, and we were in Washington, D.C. for a photo show that was sponsored by Leica. It was part of the Rolling Through the Shadows photo show that was like a traveling photo show. And we got to go there. We got to go there together, and it was really awesome. And we showed up. I think Levi's Skate was making clothes still, and they sent us both the same jacket. Well, they sent everyone the same jacket. So we were going to a colder place, so we both brought these jackets. It was really funny getting off the airplane and both having these green puffy jackets on. And that was fun hanging out with Grant for that. And then, but his friend Bob helped us walk in through the back way, the back way to get to the big dome inside. And yeah, we snuck in and then we got kicked out. So it's kind of like a skate spot.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I have just a few last ones. So this one is from Greg Hunt. He said, "Your photos have always had such a uniquely candid and genuine quality. What's been your technique for getting people to be themselves in front of the camera, especially if you don't know them well?"
That is such a good question, Greg. I don't know the answer to that, although I can see a thread of something I like to do, and I like to sneak up on people.
Okay.
So it may be something like that. It may be something as simple as, it's kind of like you're doing something sneaky with this device where you kind of see what photo you want to take and you're doing the math in your head as far as what exposure to get to get you good, because you don't want to like get that shot of that great moment and have it be dark. You can't see anything. So I think my technique is to kind of get ready first and always be ready. You're always ready. Always like if I'm in a cafe with friends or people, or if I'm on a set, and I kind of immediately the first thing I do is I start getting my exposure right for that scenario. So then that's set. So then I'll only need to see something and then go and shoot it. So it's really just like being ready.
Yeah.
And then it's either seeing something happening and being intuitive as to what might happen or what, something, and kind of just being there. And if I'm lucky, I'll raise the camera and then something will happen. Something will be there. Or I'll see something, like maybe another example is you're walking down the street, because when people see the camera, they immediately make a bad photo. I think most of the time that happens.
Yeah.
So, or what I want to have happen, obviously when the moment I'm taking a picture, they're probably going to see the camera. So I want to wait. I want to hide for as long as possible until the moment where I'm ready with the camera and I can then take it and then capture that little moment before everyone changes and they take off their glasses or they do something, that makes it not look so great.
I think you've mentioned in other interviews that you've shot like a lot of photos, of course, over the course of your life, but even just at the beginning when you were getting started, like to get better, to improve, to learn, you were shooting a lot. And so I was just wondering if you ever got a little bit burnt out on, shooting photos, and if you ever had periods of time throughout your life where you kind of either, just stopped taking photos for a few weeks or a few days or something. Was there ever a point where you were just a little burnt out and not feeling as motivated maybe to shoot photos? Or did you manage to like always remain motivated and stoked on shooting?
No, definitely not always motivated and stoked on shooting. I think it changes all the time. I think it has to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to like push something as far as it can go, and then it just naturally just falls apart. And then I think that's why people buy so many different cameras, as that's partly just like a reset. Like, all right, I got this new camera, I got to figure this out. And then, all right, now I'm excited about going and using this camera and doing what it can do. But I remember early on when I was kind of just graduated high school and I was figuring out what I was going to do, and I was kind of honestly not really into photography, not really excited about it. But I think the thing that happened to me was that I wasn't around anyone that was that connection to making a great photo. But then when I think photography for me is, unless I'm taking photographs of myself or environments that I'm in or something like that, it's really dependent on subjects, like people, and interesting people, and you can make an interesting photo out of anything.
Sure.
But it's all perspective, and I think the perspective changes constantly. Like, what do you want? What do you think a good photograph is? And that, I think that changes over time, and it should, to kind of keep it interesting. But I think with anything, if you're a writer or if you're making anything, I think you get
an artist.
You get burnt out on a particular thought pattern that you're going through to make that thing, and then flipping it or switching it. But I don't know. For me, it's dependent on the people it's usually people that are going to be in the photographs.
Yeah. Whenever you have a moment where you're not feeling as excited to shoot photos anymore, like what do you try to do to find inspiration or get motivated again?
Maybe it's a change of scenery. I think change of scenery is a good kind of switch that switches something back on that makes it more interesting. Or like I said, maybe like trying out a different camera. There's so many interesting things going on in the world. So there's really no shortage of subject matter to photographs. So
yeah.
It's just, just finding something. And then, I also want to say that being a photographer for me has been a job. So the job can get just, tedious. So then it's really nice to be able to do photographs I just want to make, photographs that I don't have anyone. It doesn't matter if anyone likes it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a nice, I think that's it's a common kind of dynamic I see with a lot of photographers is they do their work photographs for their work and then they do their personal photographs. And that's a cool combo because, it's nice to kind of balance those two needs.
Okay, I have just a few last ones.
Hello Tobin, Benjamin here. Hope you're doing great. I was wondering what seemed more important to you now. Was it sharing the, let's say, skate history and photos of tricks, or your documentation of people and times, like portraits or just lifestyle photos? What do you think has more value now?
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. Looking back at photographs, I value people more, like a personal moment, more than a skate photo. That's just me. I love skate photos, but I think maybe for skate photos, it might be stills over sequences and stuff. But I value just times. It's just, I think all photographs are kind of like a memory.
Yeah, definitely.
And a little journal entry. So I really like portraits. I like pictures of people. I also like the mixture of the two. And I like color and black and white together. It's just kind of like a collage of memories. And really nice. But I really prefer that. I think portraits are more important to me after time goes on.
He also asked about you being sober or something like that while you were filming Fucktards. Did I get that right? Like being sober or maybe fasting or something like that?
I don't know if I was fasting, but I've definitely been sober, back and forth and stuff.
From alcohol?
Yeah, from alcohol. But, I don't think I'm not in the program or something, but I like taking a break from it and not drinking.
Okay.
And it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to hang out with people that are partying a lot when you're not drinking.
Yeah, when you're sober. Yeah,
when you're sober, It's kind of funny.
It can be annoying too, but
I might not have been drinking and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of a cool take on it when you're hanging out with friends that you've done this thing. At the end of the day, you're drinking, and that's kind of like a routine that you have. It's kind of fun not to drink. I think especially when maybe in that example, documenting and filming for a video project, it kind of keeps me on my toes a little bit more and kind of puts me in a place of clarity, I guess, that I can kind of probably capture more. I don't know. It's different. I photograph differently.
You've probably said this in other interviews, but were you in the room during that famous scene in it's not a scene, but the puking scene in Fucktards with John and Andy and stuff? Were you in the room or not?
No, that is that's my favorite video clip from Fucktards. I think it's a cinematic achievement.
It's pretty impressive.
No, that's all Julian. And okay, so he just sets up his video camera in the kitchen, not knowing what's going to happen. And they were at some friend's house. They weren't even at their own house.
Oh, it was somebody else's house.
Yeah, it was at someone else's house. I think at the time we were hanging out on Haight Street a lot, and it was their friend's house on Haight Street. And Ruben Orkin was there too. And yeah, it's a cinematic achievement. I just love. It's funny. It's really gross, all the throw up and stuff. But sure. It's also kind of amazing how such force that John has in his throw up. And also he's standing up, which is just weird. It's weird. Mostly I picture people bent over on a toilet doing that.
Yeah. It's fully committed. And
it's just it's kind of like one of those funny. It's before Instagram and before people had cell phones that was shot, but it's something that nowadays, if that was shot today, it would just be on Instagram.
Oh, for sure.
Right away. So it's funny.
Yeah, John is good at everything he does, apparently. Yeah. Even projectile vomiting.
Yes.
And the last one from Benjamin, also about Fucktards, he just asked, who decided to edit the video the way it is? Was it you or Julian?
It's definitely mostly Julian. You know, Julian's the ideas behind Antihero and like how he wants it to look, and he designed all the ads. He does all the ads and does everything. But my memory was, I don't think Deluxe had an editing machine, and I didn't know how to edit. I don't think there was any kind of like in-house editing. So we were at a editing house in North Beach, San Francisco. And I remember sitting in the room together, and I think I would come up with some ideas and write some things down, but I think it's mostly Julian. And it was very like just start to finish, like how the video was going to start. And I just remember kind of being there to chime in, but it was Julian for sure. And Tommy was there too.
All right. I have a very last one. So this one is from actually two different people who sent me the same question. It's Ben Colen and Lance Dawes. So Ben asked, when are we getting the Tobin/anti-hero book the people need? And Lance asked, I ask him every day why he doesn't have a book out.
Okay, well, I'll answer first to Ben. I don't know if it's going to be an anti-hero book. I don't know what it's going to be, but I am working on it. And I worked on it. I've been working on it. I worked on it today, too. I'm not great at design, but I'm pushing myself to follow through and put together the book that I want to see. And I think it has a lot to do with like youth, and I don't know. We'll see. And then, yeah, to Lance, I would ask him the same question. Lance, yes, I'm making my book. When are you making your book?
Okay, well, we can wrap it up here. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Quentin.
For taking the time to do this. It was really nice.
You're welcome, and thanks for asking me, Quentin.
That's it for my conversation with Tobin. Follow him on Instagram at Tobin Yelland and at Tobin Shop. Go visit his websites tobinyelland.com and tobinshop.com, where you can buy some of his iconic photos and merch. And of course, do yourself a favor and go watch and rewatch A Visual Sound and Fucktards. Thank you for tuning in. See you soon for a new episode of Beyond Boards.